I definitely felt like I read a lot less in October than I did. Funny enough, I read 7 books, and I think this is because a lot of them I read back to back, and then I didn't read for a week or two because I rediscovered Animal Crossing New Horizons. So I've been wasting a lot of my time playing that instead of reading, but so it goes. My name is Taylor Rose, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about everything reading and writing. So we're going to go through the 7 books that I read in October in chronological order. First up was The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. I read her One Dark Window, Two Twisted Crowns duology last year and loved them. They were so good. I was obsessed. So when I heard that she was publishing another book this year, I was super excited to read it. And it was all over the internet, or, book is social media, at least where my algorithm was involved. So I was like super psyched. The Night and the Moth is following a young woman named Sybil. She is essentially kind of, you could consider her some sort of nun type figure. She lives in a church with 5 other young women, all of whom perform the same task. They are called the diviners, and they have psychic visions from the gods that they then interpret kind of as like a fortune-telling mechanism. These women all wear blindfolds, so no one is allowed to see their eyes. And once they have served 10 years at the church, ostensibly, they are free to go. So Sybil and her cohort are, coming up on their 10th year. So they're all really excited that they're going to be able to go out into the world and live a life. They were all orphans taken in by the matron, the woman who runs this church. So they don't have really any ties to the outside world. They aren't allowed to leave the church area, and they just perform the vision interpretation, seeings, and then like manual labor with the help of these gargoyles that live there as well. So Sybil, who she doesn't actually tell anyone her name. These 6 women go by numbers. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But we know the main character is named Sybil. One day, the king arrives with his entourage of guards to have his own vision, his own fortune told, because he has just taken the throne, and his father, the previous king, had received a bad fortune, and that ended up leading to his eventual downfall. The new king arrives, and immediately Sybil and his right-hand man, Roderick, do not get along. There's a lot of bantering, and she catches Roderick stealing water from the special well that they use to have their visions. Essentially, each woman is drowned in the water, pulled out, and kind of while she's dead, she tells, like, her body starts talking about what she sees. And then they wake up and they're fine. Sybil doesn't really care that he stole water because A, it smells horrible. B, it just makes anyone else sick. Only the women can have these visions. The diviners, I don't know. I'm horrible at that word. So she doesn't really care he stole it, but she does use it to extort a favor from him, because she wants to prove that she can also have fun and be fun. So she convinces Roderick and the other guards to take her and the 5 other women to a local festival. After this festival, however, things start to unwind. One by one, the women disappear until only Sybil is left. She tries to go get help, but unfortunately the king and Roderick did not return to their castle. They went in another direction. So she's forced to go home and discover like she's the last one left. Luckily, Roderick, is told that she came for help. So it's kind of funny because like they don't like each other really, but he feels obligated to go back and see what was wrong. So he helps Sybil run away and promises that he'll help her find the other 5 women. That's when the book really takes off and they start traveling around, trying to uncover where the women went, as well as what the king is plotting behind the scenes, kind of to establish his reign. So I don't know. I hated the first 20%. This whole Sybil can prove she's a fun person by sleeping with strangers, and everyone else is a fun person because they sleep with strangers. And that's all normal people do. Like, I just felt like you were getting hit over the head with that every page, and I didn't like it. I don't know. The implications of this rubbed me the wrong way. And then they're really only addressed for the first 20%. Like, that doesn't carry on through the rest of the book. They're not just like do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I didn't like it. So I put the book down at 20% and I went and I laid down on my husband's office floor while he was video gaming and just like cried over how much I hated the first 20% because I loved her other books. And he was like, well, you have 80% left, Taylor. Just keep reading. So I went back to bed and I continued reading. And I actually, the last 80%, great. Loved it. No notes, but, well, a few notes. But that first 20% just was such a big hurdle. Like, if it had been framed differently, I wouldn't have cared. But I don't know. The implication that she's only fun and worthy of friends is if she sleeps around was just kind of like, what? And it wasn't even like she had never done it before. Like, she just didn't like it. So it was like, not only are they pressuring you to do something, they're pressuring you to do something you don't like in order for you to fit in. I don't know. And then it's never brought up again. So my only real note is that they go on and on repeatedly about what it means to be a knight and whether or not someone's a good knight and what it means and knightly ethics, but then they never actually go into any of it. The whole, like, there's kind of one of the plot lines is that Roderick was a commoner who was made into a knight by the late king, so the current king's father, which, like, okay, valid, but then he just keeps getting reassured by people, you're a good knight, and it's like, but I don't know what a good knight is. So far, people have just said, it's a rich person who keeps promises. Like, I don't know. I wanted to see more world building in that regard. It didn't really feel like there was much cultural impact or anything about it. I don't know. So I wanted more information in that regard. I felt like I was missing from the story, but otherwise I liked the world building around the 6 gods and what they meant, and the like cultural information about each region was super interesting. I just wish there was more night related information given. Overall, 4 stars. Lost one for that first 20% that I didn't like, but the rest of the book was great. I loved the side characters. Bartholomew was so funny. He's a gargoyle that just calls everyone Bartholomew. Oh, Bartholomew. So if you liked Rachel Gillig's other books, I definitely think you would like this one. Maybe you will also have to get over that first hurdle like I did. Who knows? The second book that I read was The Works of Vermin by Hiram Innes. It was an arc when I read it, but the book has since been published October 14th, 2025. So you can go and buy it now. Incredible. I don't think I've read such a unique book in a long time. Like, endless depths of just crazy world building. If you have an issue with bugs, you don't like bugs creep you out, maybe don't read this one. There's a lot of bug stuff. The Works of Vermin has kind of like 2 main POVs. And one is for the upper class and one is for the lower class. We're in a city that's essentially built into the roots of a gigantic tree. There are the people in the roots and then the people up more towards the top, right? The POV for the lower class follows this young man named Geilig. He has had a tough life. He's in a lot of debt, which is indicated by tattoos over his visible skin. And he is currently in contract to a militaristic pest control company. So he lives in the barracks. Everything in this world is a contract. Marriage, jobs, friendship. You basically are signing paperwork for everything. And poor Geilig, or Guy, he is taking care of his much younger sister, Tiro, because he doesn't want her to end up like him. He doesn't want her to be in debt. He doesn't want her to sign a contract for any of these terrible companies. He wants to be able to afford boat tickets out of the city. There's a toxic river kind of like going through the bottom of the roots, to get on that river and get out of town to freedom in the countryside. However, it's not as easy as it sounds. Geilig has to take multiple jobs, kind of unsavory things. His job is very dangerous. He's exposed to poison constantly. As he's navigating this whole pest control thing, he is also learning kind of about the political machinations behind the owners of these pest control conglomerates. His POV I really enjoyed because his feelings are just so strong and they're portrayed in a really relatable way. Like you feel so much empathy for him being in this tough situation and having like all the hurdles he's dealing with, like the love he feels for Tiro. Was just like so pure and heartfelt. It was like, what a great brother. Oh my gosh. The other POV is following a young woman named Asteritha. Aster. She is a perfumer for the upper class. They use different terms, but essentially she is contracted to, like, so imagine basically she is contracted to the commander of the Secret Service, and he sometimes sends her to help the president. They go by like chancellor and all these other terms, but in this world, perfume is actually very powerful. It honestly is kind of like a hallucinogen. It can make people believe anything you want them to believe about you. It can make them think you are scarier than you are. It can make them trust you. It can make them believe you without question. It can make them, afraid to hurt you. It can make people love you. It can hide wounds and sickness. Like, it's extremely powerful. So Aster is making these custom concoctions for, her boss, for the leader of this country. And simultaneously, her best friend is contracted to marry this president chancellor figure. Her plot line is all about working up to her friend's wedding, as well as kind of dealing with the political machinations going up in the, upper class, and how she starts to learn that things aren't quite as they seem, or she's starting to realize that she doesn't actually agree with a lot of the things that are going on. Compared to Guy's POV, I didn't like Aster as much. She kind of came off as emotionally constipated to me, unfortunately. Her friend was a much more engaging character, and so is this man that Aster meets. Like, everyone else in Aster's story was like way more exciting, I felt. And ultimately, I think Aster's POV is just to show you, like, she was well positioned to see multiple moving parts, even if those multiple moving parts are more interesting than her. Does that make sense? Absolutely incredible. It does take a while. This is one of those books where the beginning threads are so incredibly disparate. You don't know where they're going until 60-70% through the book, and then everything comes together and you're just like, oh my god. I really like books like that. The build up kind of like makes the ending way more satisfying, in my opinion. One thing to consider about this book is that it is extremely dense. It uses a lot of terminology from a pest control, entomology, art history, music, like theater terms. So there are multiple layers of meaning in a lot of things, and the descriptions are extremely intricate and vibrant. So if you prefer a writing style that's more laid back, more chill, not quite so intense, you probably won't like this book. But if you like, as I was reading, it kind of reminded me of the 5th season, but like the 5th season's like the earthy naturalist science version, and then this is like the ornate artistic cousin, if that makes sense. It was so good. I highly recommend it. Plus the cover, look at that, it's beautiful. That's definitely what drew me in. I was like, ooh, creepy. I did have a few false starts beginning the book, but that was my own fault. Once I got into it, I couldn't stop. The next 2 books I read were actually a duology by Charlie N. Holmberg. I did a video talking about every single book by her. I've read every fantasy book by her, so if you want to check that video out, go ahead. But essentially, this duology is The Shattered King, which is currently already published, and then The Half-Hearted Queen, which is an arc on NetGalley, so it's not yet officially published. Holmberg is definitely a comfort read for me. I will read anything by her. I've liked pretty much everything by her, with like one notable exception. You know, definitely like compared to the works of Vermin, much more simple, but like there's nothing wrong with that. Like I feel like you can only read so many really complicated books before you need a break, right? So it's like I could read Charlie Holmberg 24/7 probably. I'm never not satisfied finishing one of her books, but this series follows a young woman named Nim. She lives in a country where magic is illegal, so you will be executed if you are found possessing magic. The magic in this country kind of takes this world takes 3 forms. There's healing, there is soul binding, and then there's like mind reading, essentially. So Nim is a healer. Fortunately for Nim, the last 20 years, healing has actually been legal because the 3rd heir, the younger prince, Ren, something happened to him as a baby. He has been very ill his entire life. So the queen, in desperation, legalized healing magic, or craftwork, and has basically been drafting anyone with healing powers to come to the capital and try to heal the prince. Nim, of course, has not been drafted yet. She's in her early 20s, but the day that her oldest brother, so the 2nd oldest child, is drafted to join the war as a soldier, she is drafted to the capital. Of course, she's very upset by this because her parents are dead. She has been raising her siblings. Most of them are still children, incapable of working. Like, if she has to leave too, they lost half the income with the brother leaving. Now they're losing her too. So she's like, my siblings are going to starve. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but she has to go to the capital. So she goes knowing that no one else has healed the prince. She'll be back in a few weeks. So she finally makes it to the capital after a long journey, and she is taken to see the prince. He is in a terrible state. He can't walk. His legs are horribly broken. He's just like in pain all the time. And he has kind of lived his life isolated in his room to avoid the scrutiny and stares of the other nobles in the capital. Healing works basically through skin contact, where the healer goes into the other person's kind of like internal mind, which is represented by a room and then an object in that room. So the object, when someone is sick, is broken somehow. So if it were a painting, maybe the paint is smudged or the paint's dripping. Nim's room is basically a tower of bricks in like this tessellation pattern. So like if one of her bricks is moved or pulled out, that's representative of an injury. And depending on how messed up it is, like you could die. So Nim goes into Prince Ren and finds his room filled with broken glass. And she's just like, there's no way anyone can fix this. Like it would be impossible to put together all these pieces of glass. But as she's looking around, she sees two that are the same color. So she kind of like tries to stick them together and uses her magic kind of as a glue to like hold them in place. And she's like, nah, there's nothing. I can't. It's hopeless. So she leaves Ren's brain and goes and she, tells the queen, I'm sorry, I couldn't do anything. And she goes to leave when the prince speaks up. My foot, his foot has been healed. Nim, of course, is horrified. Like, why did I even do that? Because she is now imprisoned and forced from dawn to dusk to continue putting together these tiny pieces of glass inside Ren's head. So the first book, The Shattered King, is about the kind of like the healing process, learning about the history behind Ren's illness. And then the Half-Hearted Queen is about like the political ramifications of all of that knowledge. I will say, compared to her other works, definitely I feel like it's kind of more adult. It addresses a few, more touchy subjects compared to her other stuff. However, it was just kind of lacking in description. I didn't have a good idea or good image compared to her other stuff. Actually, the second book was better than the first book. Like a lot of things were described more for some reason. So it was like, oh, that's what it's supposed to have. That's what it's looked like this whole time. And I didn't know. A lot of things are just, it'd be like the room had a narrow bed and a bathtub and a fireplace. And it's like, that's just like the name of an object. It could look a million different ways. And I feel like usually she's better at using adjectives for them. I don't know. Obviously, in my other video, I have more in-depth thoughts about it. But overall, good, cozy read. I use cozy for her a lot, but it's like, because I could just sit and read no matter what, I don't know. If you liked Of Runes and Ruin by Celeste Baxendale, so her duology, The Princess Captive, The Princess Mage, you would probably like this duology as well. Or if you read The Bird and the Sword by Amy Harmon, they all kind of hit the same plot points. Woman with magic imprisoned by royal man to solve magic-based mystery. The fifth book I read was The Poet Empress by Shen Tao. So this is their debut novel. It's not being published until January. So I was reading another arc, and this was so good. I was shocked that it was a debut novel. Absolutely incredible. So it is a Chinese culture-based fantasy where magic is poetry. It is for men only, and it is written. It's a written form of magic. We are following a young woman named Wei, who is from the countryside. So she is a peasant. The country's experiencing a horrible famine. So like everyone she knows is starving essentially. When she finds out that the crown prince, who is known for being this bloodthirsty, murderous tyrant, is looking for a wife. Royal eunuchs are traveling the country to collect women for the selection. So Wei decides this is her chance. She needs to go. That way she'll have power to feed her family. However, she isn't chosen. So she literally begs at this eunuch's feet, like, send me. Wouldn't it be so funny if this bloodthirsty prince killed me in front of everyone? Because haha, why would he ever marry me? And the eunuch at first is like, no. But then he's like, actually, that would be funny. Okay, I'll take you. So she goes to the imperial court, where she immediately begins second guessing her decision because it is way more nefarious and conniving than she ever imagined. So the story is about Wei navigating political machinations while uncovering the background behind a lot of the political stuff going on. Like, why does the first prince hate the crown prince? what happened with the mothers of the younger ones and who's the current empress and blah, blah, blah. So really great. I loved how it was written. It's not like epistolary, but it felt like an old friend is writing you a letter. Like that's kind of like how it's narrated. So it's like first person way, kind of like telling you about everything that happened to her and her feelings. If you like morally gray characters, everyone in this is morally gray. Absolutely crazy. I gasped so loudly. My husband woke up because I was reading this in bed. And absolutely, oh man. Like I can't even, like I keep thinking about it. I highly recommend it. It does come out in January. So there's a little bit of a wait, but it'll be worth it. Put it on your TBR, guys. I loved it. The sixth book I read was the Jasad Heir. So I did go ahead and I made a 2-hour video talking about everything in this book because people just talk about it on TikTok. Overall, it was good. Kind of a romantasy. So it is an Egyptian-based romantasy. We're following a woman named Sylvia or Isaiah, who we shortly learn is the lost heir of Jasad. Well, everyone assumes she's dead, but she's the heir of Jasad, a country that was destroyed kind of in an uprising of the 4 other countries 10 years ago. And anyone who is found to be a Jasadi, so they are the only culture left with magic, they are essentially executed on sight. So she is in hiding, just trying to live, when she accidentally gets the attention of the Nizalan commander. So he is like the #1 Jasadi hunter, and he immediately knows she's a Jasadi. But they come to a deal. She is going to help him lure in the 2 main Jasadi rebellion groups by performing in a series of trials meant to honor the gods. And she's doing this, A, to protect herself, B, to protect her friends. While overall, I really liked the plot, and the only real logical inconsistencies were like in the beginning with like her motivations for things that aren't important. And then kind of like stuff around the magic of her cuffs. So she has magical cuffs that stop her from using her magic correctly. You know, other than that, those were like the 2 major issues I had. I definitely think this is like on the better end of book talk romantasies by far. If you like romantasies, definitely I think you'll like this one. The banter, incredible, so funny. I think having read 2 like amazing books before this kind of maybe colored my opinion, but so it goes. The final book I read was Bunny by Mona Awad. This book was absolutely bizarre. I listened to it on audiobook on Halloween, fittingly. And it's kind of like a horror, I guess. If you watch like Frankie's Bookshelf, that channel, this is definitely a book he would probably cover. I should probably check if he did, but essentially you are following a woman named Samantha Mackey, who is enrolled in an MFA program in a New England college, where her cohort is completely comprised of rich young women. And they are kind of like a cult. They dress the same, they sound the same, they eat the same things, they're always together, and they all call each other Bunny. Hi, Bunny. How are you, Bunny? Great, Bunny. And Samantha, is like, feels isolated and alienated by this group because they're just so different. And she kind of has like a martyr complex. Like, I'm so poor. They just don't understand because they're from rich families and stuff like that. So reviews are very mixed on this story. Essentially what happens is that Samantha has a friend who dropped out of the art college, Ava, who kind of is like encouraging her to get away from the university. It's killing her spirit, it's killing her creativity. But Samantha is like, no, I have to stick through this because of the stipend, and I have no other options. When Samantha is invited to the Bunny's smut salon, She doesn't know what this is going to entail, but she goes and everything rapidly unravels around her. I don't want to say too much more because I went into this completely blind and was flabbergasted the entire time. I definitely think going in blind probably helped. But reviews are very mixed. Some people are like, this is a feminist icon, and other people are like, this was so anti-feminist. So I honestly couldn't tell you. I did give it a 3-star because while it was entertaining, I didn't love it, but it wasn't bad. It was definitely like a fever dream type thing. I will say a lot of the reviews complain about Samantha being extremely unlikable, and I just thought that was kind of funny because it's like really obvious that like she has an untreated anxiety disorder and or depression, because a lot of the things she does or thinks, it's like, I've thought that before. I've definitely been her in that situation. Like seeing little signs from other people and just like extrapolating a whole backstory for why they hate you, when really probably they just had a bad day. So it's like looking back, it's like, oh yeah, that was me. That was me in college, barely hanging on. I feel like the people who thought she was just like so insufferable probably have never like dealt with issues like that of like wanting to belong, but like getting so in your head you are just like perpetuating this cycle of alienation. Was she like sympathetic? No, probably not. But like I got why she was saying these things and doing these things. So it's like I could understand her. My friend recommended I read this book actually because the sequel just came out. And the setup for that is that Samantha, after the events of Bunny, wrote a book that became a bestseller about her experiences with the bunnies. But the bunnies are upset that she made them look so bad in her book. So they've kidnapped her and want to tell their side of the story, which seems super interesting. I'm really intrigued to see how that goes. I just can't really agree that there was any sort of like deeper meaning to what's going on. I mean, at least nothing jumped out to me in terms of like the whole bunny part of the story. Like I got Samantha's like evolution through learning not to alienate herself so badly, but the other parts were really wild. I don't know. Finally, I have never actually heard anyone talk about this book, but it has 300,000 ratings on Goodreads, so it seems like it's a pretty well-known or a bestseller of some sort. I don't know. If you're gonna read it, I recommend going in knowing nothing, because that just made it so much crazier. As for November, I have 3 books currently on loan from Libby. Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher, The Path of Thorns by A.G. Slatter, and Immortal Consequences by I.V. Marie. So I have read books by A.G. Slatter previously that I enjoyed. I haven't read anything by T. Kingfisher, but I keep seeing tons of recommendations for their books. And then Immortal Consequences is a YA. I don't know, the cover drew me in, and I like magical school stuff. We'll see how it goes. We are going on a trip later this month, so I'm gonna have many days of just being able to read. We'll see if I can beat October. Have you read any of these books, and what did you think? Let me know down in the comments below. Well, that is all for now. I will see you next time.